Hey there, my name is Niandra, and on this YouTube channel I like making videos where I commentate over my own gameplay. I want to start doing it again for others, so if you're interested in getting your gameplay looked at, see the pinned comment below. In all of my previous VODs, I spent a lot of time pointing out moments where the user heals a fully healthed ally instead of damage boosting. From now on, I'm simply going to put this banner on screen unless I have anything else to say. Huge thanks to Harry for letting me review this one, and there's a lot to talk about, so let's just get right into it. Starting off, the tanks are a little late coming out of spawn, but that's not our fault. Harry just wants to hang back until they've caught up. I originally thought Harry's initial positioning here was pretty exposed. My solution was to peek from here instead, however that did carry the risk of Soldier dropping down and blocking him in the corner. If enemy Soldier was going to play from this weird high ground, then hugging the wall wasn't really that bad because it would force the enemy to play from the very edge. One of my consistent notes for this VOD was that Harry always stands completely still while rezzing, and in future should incorporate some level of movement like twisting around corners. In this specific instance, if Harry was going to stand still, then it should be done from here because at least the statue would then provide cover. Because we have two injured tanks on the left, what I would have done here is res while looking and moving towards them with my heal button held down to really minimise the frames needed to start healing my tanks again. Okay, so the specific thing that killed Harry, being one shot by Orion, was pretty unlucky, so let's go through the events that led up to it. Before Harry goes for the res on Baptiste, we can see our Mei hanging out on the right, and then during it we can see her icicle being shot from the same area, which indicates she's still on point. Harry then starts taking damage from Genji behind him, which pushes him forward past the statue into the charge path. Personally, my play here would have been res Baptiste, beam the tanks, grab the health kit, and then fall back to Mei on point. I also think just a little bit more trust in our Baptiste would have gone a real long way here. I assume the damage from Genji is what pushed Harry so forward, but it's really not that scary when you've got so many resources nearby. Another consistent note I made was how Harry keeps the staff out after respawning despite no beam targets. I always recommend taking the pistol out when heading back because, well, your beam doesn't do anything without an ally. With the pistol, you can maybe throw some pot shots into a fight and it means you're less likely to fumble if you're spawn camped. Now, being spawn camped isn't likely, but it does eventually happen to Harry in this match, which I'll go over later. If Harry is determined to keep the staff out when it's not connected, then he should hold down the heal or damage boost buttons so it automatically connects to an ally once they're a legal target. We can briefly see enemy Soldier in the theatre across from us, and if he doesn't go right towards spawn then he must be going upstairs. In that case, our 2 points of concern are here, and he picks the ladder. Sadly, Harry's reactions are a little bit slow and Baptiste dies. Harry goes for the res but again stands still despite cover next to him that he could backpedal behind. Soldier ults, and the first time watching this, I was so scared, but somehow it works out okay. Against Soldier, it is really important to keep allies above that 120 health threshold so they can't be killed by a direct rocket hit, which is a common follow-up after shooting someone down. Here, Harry should be pushing damage boost a lot more since these allies are full health, generally safe, and Baptiste is right next to us. Harry is going to die to enemy Soldiers shooting from high ground in a little bit, and I want to go through the steps leading up to it. After this res, we can see friendly D.Va get demeched and killed on high ground by the Soldier. He could fall back afterwards, but I'd say it's more likely for him to stay on the high ground. My reasoning for this is he's fairly self-sustainable, and with D.Va dead, Harry's remaining allies don't have that much vertical mobility to challenge him. Valkyrie just ended, which leaves defenders with a Mei wall, which Soldier will easily see in advance. I have two ideas for this one. For starters, simply push up faster here, probably with super jump, and hope to team wipe with damage boost before these enemies can get up and attack Mercy. Alternatively, after seeing D.Va die, reposition to the right side hotel. It would probably leave a few seconds of beam downtime, but with Baptiste healing the tanks, Harry should be able to afford it. Friendly Mei is going to use Blizzard, which currently lasts 4.5 seconds, used to last 5, and I want to do a timer for it. As a side note, if Harry had taken the pistol out here, he could have gotten some pot shots into this Tracer slowed by the Mei ult. Tragically, Mei's ult wears off right as Harry gets in the middle of everyone. In this case, if you were going to use it for res cover, it would have been really important to track the timing while on the way. We saw friendly Reinhardt die as early as here, so Harry definitely should have spent the next 2 seconds asking himself, do I trust this Mei ult to remain as I walk, fly, and spend 1.75 seconds rezzing? Points for bravery though. I think the only way this specific res was succeeding was if he super jumped it. Harry has Mei and Baptiste in front of him split between areas. While coming back from spawn, we could see Baptiste panic while he took damage and the sound of Tracer's gun. Harry follows Mei, and thanks to a miracle, the Tracer is killed before she can eliminate Baptiste. The better play was definitely to heal Baptiste while peeking from behind this corner, and the decision to follow Mei was just, it's so risky that the only way it really makes sense to me is if Harry actively wanted Baptiste to die, which Okay, friendly Ryan and McCree just died, so they're going to be a while getting back, but if Harry wanted a team reset, he should have told allies to get back. Anyway, Harry has 2 allies in front of him and enemies are slowly pushing from here. He waits a few seconds, walks forward and then uses Guardian Angel, taking some damage in the process. The safer move was to simply Guardian Angel from the corner and use the bunny hop to push himself behind the 2 for cover. Both of Harry's tanks move left into the pub and this leaves the rest in a pretty awkward position. Walking in view of enemies on the payload to help Ryan is terrifying, so I understand why Harry doesn't do it. All I can really think of is maybe peeking from like here, but honestly, the tanks were the ones that messed up. If Harry had a microphone, it definitely would have been worth asking them to get out and shield the choke instead. Harry's gonna get stuck with Pulse Bomb, and I think it's a good example of why I often say to avoid playing near teammates. Getting right in the face of an ally really benefits a Tracer with Pulse Bomb because if it misses Mercy, it's likely to hit the ally next to her, especially if it's someone as big as D.Va. One of my big basic rules as Mercy is to stop movement when stuck with Pulse Bomb, but Harry is forced to fly forward away from D.Va because he'll demech her otherwise, which then puts other allies at risk. If Harry had kept distance from D.Va, there would have been a chance she could ate the bomb or the bomb missed, but even if it didn't, at least it would be guaranteed to only kill him, which is ultimately a silver lining if you are going to die to Pulse Bomb. Harry flies to Baptiste and ends up kind of exposed. Personally, I would have cancelled Guardian Angel early here so I could pocket Baptiste from cover such as this. Harry dies to a stuck Pulse Bomb and upon respawning is killed by enemy Tracer who has chosen the spawn camp. In my original document, I kept making minor notes about taking the pistol out when allies aren't around. While spawn camping is unlikely and this is the only death out of several where lack of pistol is punished, there's just no reason not to play around it. In this case, even if Harry had died while fighting back, at least he would have gotten some ult charge from it and that's better than nothing. After respawning again, Harry still doesn't take the pistol out and to be fair, we can see in the kill feed that Tracer died, but like, I would just be super paranoid, I don't know, like... If you can remember the May Bap scenario from earlier, one thing I noticed a few times during this VOD is that Harry makes what I would consider the wrong decision, but it ends up working out okay, either due to teammates or enemies being unable to punish his choice. Taking advantage of your enemy's flaws is absolutely valid, but it's something you have to be careful with because you're gonna climb the ranks where it no longer works. Now with that in mind, friendly Baptiste is gonna die and afterwards Harry begins a flank with McCree. Now, Mercy is designed to be a pocket healer and sticking with one ally over the rest can be perfectly fine, as long as your second support is there and capable of covering your absence. Harry's decision to turn his camera view away from allies was very risky, especially since we know that neither tank got fully healed first. The play works out because McCree pops off, but teammates easily could have died from lack of healing, and personally I might have stayed in this area so I could quickly flip my beam between everyone. Harry has Valkyrie ready and we can see a Baptiste shot go by, which indicates he's back. In that case, since enemies don't seem to be pushing, it'd be worth letting him heal the D.Va up so he gets the ult charge from it. This would then allow Mercy to heal the also injured Ryan pushed up further, but it'd be even better to tell him to play near the D.Va so Bap could get both. And death to Pulse Bomb. Sadly Harry moved towards it before moving away, and due to the fuse time, that simple mistake sealed his death. I noticed that Pulse Bomb was a vague but consistent issue this match, and that indicates that Harry is often positioning too close to teammates and should consider learning Super Jump since Tracer can't access the high ground often around him. In this instance, I definitely think he should have been a little bit further back from the payload, but I'll talk about that more in round 2. Harry goes for a res during Valkyrie and gets shattered out of it, which was so tragic to watch. Like, I really felt this one. It's so easy to forget that Shatter has a vertical distance of 2 meters, which Mercy can play around by carefully ascending backwards during the res. To me, this death was simply the accumulation of refusing to move during Resurrect. Eventually, it was going to be punished. I mentioned earlier, if Harry isn't going to take the pistol out after respawning, then he should hold down heal or damage boost for the immediate beam connect. Since the team is desperately stalling, this would have been really useful here because they need all the help they can get. In this instance, holding heal out of spawn would have attached the beam onto me, maybe like a second faster. Sadly the enemy team caps, but it's in overtime, so hey, not the worst. The round begins and Harry's team is quite cramped together while leaving spawn. As I mentioned in my last guide, I recommend letting teammates go first as Mercy to avoid getting hit by any potential damage thrown at the spawn doors such as a fire strike. Being this close could have been really punished if defenders were running, say, a Junkrat. Allies push past the choke towards the statue and Harry is quick to follow, placing him close. Personally, I would have stayed behind the choke and beamed them from here for a bit longer so I was less exposed and likely to take damage meant for them. If Harry had stayed at the choke, he wouldn't need to dance to avoid damage like this, plus all allies would remain in his camera view, so he'd know immediately if they rotated left of the statue instead. Harry rezzes in front of enemy D.Va while standing still, which is risky for two reasons. She might just kill him or boop him out of the res. She does just fly away instead, but that shows she had boosters ready to cancel. It might have been worth backpedaling while rezzing, so if D.Va booped him from behind, he would have been pushed closer to the target rather than away, which might have made it less likely to cancel. Harry Guardian Angels towards Reinhardt, which leaves him quite exposed on point. I think it would have been worth using the bunny hop to push into this area for cover and then repositioning while healing Rein when GA was ready again. Anyway, attackers capped the first point and hey, good job. Harry's team has gotten a lot of picks and continues pushing up. Here I'd push damage boost pretty heavily because enemy soldier is really the only one left. As long as allies stay above that Helix rocket threshold mentioned earlier, I'd mainly want to let Bap have the healing here because he doesn't have ult while I do. So enemy soldier is clearly down here somewhere, and Baptiste heads to the cart while both our DPS push him. Harry then turns away from them to the cart alongside his second healer and just seems a bit unsure if he should go with them. Since Baptiste was also with tanks on cart, I'd consider going with the DPS. When your team is split in two, it's often best that healers aren't in the same group because it means one side gets no healing. Plus, if enemy soldier had killed one of our DPS, Harry would have been ready to res it. If Harry was going to play near the cart, I think moving behind the subway and peeking from here might have been a good idea. My reasoning for this is it makes Harry's safety less dependent on our Reinhardt, which after the pub incident, should absolutely be considered. Sadly, Harry gets shattered during his Valkyrie and both enemy DPS use ult, so there's not much he could have done here. If Harry had position from behind the subway, he could have maybe ulted safely, but it still might have been a lost fight. Harry's team is going to regroup, push up, and will soon cap, which, good job on that. One thing I'd be a little careful about is playing so close to the objective. Keep in mind the payload speed caps out at 3 people, so having 4 or more won't make it go any faster. Plus, the last fight before a checkpoint is really important for defenders to win, and they achieve that by, well, killing people on the payload, which you are. Supporting Hanzo through a tracer attack was great, but Harry should have cancelled Guardian Angel early here so he didn't end up so close to her. Generally, I would only get this close if I was going to body block our Hanzo, which can be a solid decision against Tracer. Harry's tanks push up while he and Baptiste stay on the payload. In general, Mercy provides a lot more by being with those tanks than sitting on the objective, plus there's a delay before the payload starts moving again, giving even less reason to be on it. One thing I noted is that Harry never cancels his Guardian Angel early, which I'm not mad about. I've seen it quite a few times in console VODs, but I feel like it really hindered his decision making during this last point. There's lots of little instances where he seems almost afraid to push up to help allies that are correct in playing aggressive because he isn't aware he can fly, beam, cancel, and heal from a safe spot behind. Here Harry dies to soldier, but that's okay, a bunch of allies have already died and the enemy used a few ults to win the fight. A few seconds beforehand, while backing off, if Harry had backpedaled into this left room, he might have been able to get out okay to avoid giving ult charge for his death. Enemy Moira is ulting in front of us and that goes through the Rein shield, so once it broke, Harry was just kinda toast here. Good resurrect, but Harry should have backpedaled behind the box while doing so since he's a little exposed here. This is a pretty good Valkyrie. One general tip I gave Harry was to consider playing further back instead of directly above while ulting so he could keep teammates in his camera view better. The other suggestion was to use the last few seconds of Valkyrie to think about how you want to position once ult is over and start preparing for that. Harry doesn't incorporate super jump into his playstyle, and in that case it can be worth using Valk to position from high ground. This would have been useful for matches like this where his Reinhardt just kinda wandered off quite a bit. Anyway, the shatter is unfortunate because, as I said, our Rein did push up, but to me this is also the danger of playing near the payload, near allies, just general areas that defenders want attackers gone from. Using the high ground around the payload would have been so valuable here. Friendly McCree and Hanzo die near each other while enemy Tracer runs around the backline and targets Baptiste. Harry goes for a res that, like earlier situations, was risky and reliant on the enemy not confirming a kill. Keep in mind, we already have 2 dead allies with no confirmed pick, so Harry's team is still going to be down 1 with res, potentially 2 if Baptiste dies during it. One of the main goals of Resurrect is to bring your team a numbers advantage, and mismanagement of that easily leads to this staggered half fight that just eats up time. Sadly, Harry dies to Tracer, and let's rewind because I chalk this death up to the lack of Guardian Angel cancelling. Here, Friendly D.Va attacks Soldier and Harry pushes up with a bunny hop that delays the cooldown of Guardian Angel instead of cancelling and beaming from this area. He then pushes up to his Rein instead of cancelling and shifting into here. Harry's gonna die to Pulse Bomb, and I think he got stuck to an ally behind him that then walked forward. Kinda unlucky, but generally as Mercy, you should be positioning behind your teammates so you can easily see who needs help. Playing that way would have been useful here since Harry could have seen who it was stuck to and move accordingly. After losing Mercy and McCree, Harry's team is down 2, and with time running out, it's really important for them to fall back. If Harry was comfortable speaking, it absolutely would have been worth telling allies to regroup. In regards to contesting, you have to touch the objective at least once within 3 seconds before the clock reaches 0 to trigger overtime. This is a great thing to keep in mind as Mercy. For example, I like to touch the payload within that time so overtime will trigger, but then immediately move off it so I'm safer for when it occurs. To piggyback off that last note, Harry spends the end of Valkyrie hugging the payload. Since there's already a few allies on it, Harry doesn't need to contest, and if that's the case, he should absolutely not be near the payload, especially since his Rein has once again just kind of left the team. As mentioned earlier, it's really worth spending the last few seconds of Valkyrie positioning yourself in a place you want to be when it's over, and I absolutely think that should have been taken into consideration here. This spot would have been great. It's high ground near the payload that would allow Harry to see allies in a huge area and protect him highly against their Tracer who can't get up there. As I said earlier, Mercy should play around an objective rather than on it because it forces the enemy to put more effort into killing her, and this is so especially important during overtime. Like, they want Mercy off the payload, you know? Sadly, the match ends up being a loss. My overall notes for Harry were largely in regards to positioning, that learning various Guardian Angel techniques like cancelling and super jump would open up a world of opportunities kinda needed in this match. Despite Harry not playing perfectly, I don't think he was the sole reason for this loss. As mentioned, his Reinhardt wasn't reliable, but that's also another reason I suggest learning these techniques. If Reinhardt is being overly aggressive, super jump may allow us to support him safely. The other thing was that during the third point, there was quite a bit of staggering basically. Overall, attackers needed to back off and regroup quicker after losing people, and not doing so ate up a lot of time. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope I did a good job analysing this one. Feel free to check out my other Mercy guides, Patreon, and have a nice day.